Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this June 1 Issues Forum. Day after the holiday, we all may be a little sluggish, so let's just shake it all off and get started. The Issues Forum, as you know, is a monthly forum that we have here that highlights some of the issues that's going on in our community, and we have interesting guests like we have this morning. I'd like to welcome you and extend a really warm welcome to the two representatives that are with us this morning. We have House Member Jermaine Johnson and House Member Seth Rose. So thank you, gentlemen, for being with us here this morning. We really appreciate everyone joining us. Hopefully you had a really good time at your holiday, extended holiday, and want us to continue to remember the fact that the Memorial Holiday is a time to rejoice and just have fun with your family. But it's the lives of those who get sacrificed for us and their families. So let's keep them in our prayers. I'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors, Bank of America and Blue Cross Blue Shield, who help us put this program on so that you can be informed. Before we begin our discussion, I'd like to ask the representatives if they would think just a bit about your desire for the final outcome of the session. It's not you guys happen, but you guys will be called back. While you're thinking about that, I want to inform everyone about the chat function. Make sure you put your questions in the chat function, and as Susan and Anna will be looking at it, and I'll be looking at it as well, to ask our representatives your question. So thank you both gentlemen very much for joining us. As I said, the Chamber's role is to be the voice of business, but also to bring before folks issues that are of concern to the business community. So I'd like to ask each of you to introduce yourself, tell us a little about your service in the House, some newer than others, and what your desire is for the outcome for the 21-22 legislative session. So Jermaine Johnson, Representative Johnson, I'll start with you.
Well, good morning to everybody that's on the call, and thank you, Ms. Baskins, for that introduction. This is my first term, and I have learned a lot. I've learned a lot sitting next to my good friend right there, Seth Rose, and I've learned a lot even talking to Carl Blackstone about some things that were going on and things that would go on. I feel good about my first term, about the things that I've been able to work on this session, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting back in there now that I've got my feet wet, and really trying to make a little bit more, more solidified change, and rather than having these ceremonial wins. I think we need to get some more concrete things done. I think there's more low-hanging fruit and opportunity on the table, and I'm just looking forward to being part of this legislative session coming up.
Representative Rose.
Hello, everyone, and thank you to the Chamber for putting this on. And Ms. Baskins, always great to see you. I am Seth Rose. I'm in my second term in the State House of Representatives. I serve in House District 72, which formerly was represented by James Smith, who obviously ran for governor. It's an honor to serve in the legislature. I can tell you I serve on judiciary, and I also serve on regs and administration. One of the things I'm really proud of is obviously this is my third year in the legislature, and last year was a wash because of COVID. So we basically didn't have a second year, but I've had 3 bills that have been signed into law. So 3 bills that have passed both the House and the Senate. 2 were signed by the governor. 1 was overrode by the legislature. We overrode his veto, but there are 3 bills that really impact a lot of people and help people. I look forward to kind of carrying and building on to that success. I enjoy serving with my friend Jermaine. I can tell you we have a running joke that our legislative basketball team has gotten better Beat the big guy. As I tell him, you can't teach 6'7". So, we play the North Carolina legislature, and I had to carry the load in my first year. The second year was canceled, but we plan on getting him into the offense. I told him make sure he rebounds and looks for me though. I don't want him to be too much of a ball hog. But I enjoy serving in the legislature, and I want to say thank you to Carl Blackstone and the chamber for what you did with the hate crimes legislation. The chamber really helping push that, really gave it the kickstart it needed to pass the House. It's in the Senate, and we hope that keeps progressing. There's a lot of other initiatives the chamber's been involved in. We had the Abandoned Buildings Act that was signed into law. Serving on judiciary, we had COVID liability that came through our committee that I supported and has passed the House as well. So I just want to say thank you to the chamber, and I look forward to working with you and helping support your initiatives going forward.
Well, thank you very much. At the beginning of the session, it seemed like it was going to be at a snail's pace, and all of a sudden it picked up quite substantially. There were a lot of contentious issues this year. There were things some surprises, bills that came through the House, some that were not a surprise. Representative Johnson, of the things that happened, the legislative things that happened from open carry to the COVID legislation, what are the things that stand out in your mind that were wins that you thought were wins, and things that that we need to work on?
Well, it's twofold. The hate crimes legislation that Seth just mentioned, I believe it was a win in the House, but we know it's still sitting over there in the Senate. So it was a win because this is as far as we've ever gotten with this, and it's extremely uplifting, and it's extremely just a good start for where we're at. So I believe that was a win, but I also believe there's some things that we need to work on in terms of that hate crime legislation because it's stalled. I don't think it should be sitting over in the Senate. I think this was a no-brainer. I think this was a pretty easy thing. The business community supports it. Majority of South Carolina supports it. And I think that's something that we should have and could have gotten done in that first year. They prioritized other things. And I think that should have been on the top list of priorities. So that's going to be one of the things that I'll be very, very much outspoken on this next year coming up to make sure that we try to get this thing done. I'll be over there in the Senate talking to some of my colleagues and trying to make sure that, they are doing all they can to make sure that this thing goes into the next year. So if we can definitely get that thing going, I think it'll be good. You talked about open carry. That's coming down the pipeline. Obviously, we know, we don't want to talk about the fact that, it's the constitutional stuff and all this other stuff that's going on. The only thing that I thought that needed to be worked on in terms of that was the fact that there's probable cause in there. I think that's something that needs to be worked on. That's something that might need to be added in there, is the fact to remove the probable cause for some people, because we want the law to be equally applied to everybody. And we know where all the police officers are at in our community. So, we know how it's going to be applied to individuals who kind of look like me. So, we just want to make it equitable and continue to support everybody's rights.
Representative Rose, what about you?
Yeah, I think some of the wins, and I've got the numbers here for the budget, but I think $30 million in the House budget for broadband expansion, $50 million for base student costs, $160 million in higher ed capital and maintenance needs, $20 million increased child welfare funds at DSS. I mean, some of the things that are in the budget is what I'm really excited about. I was a bit frustrated that coming out of a pandemic, we spent so much time on national issues. I can tell you in my first term, which is really 1 year, I was pleasantly surprised that the legislature isn't like, Congress. It wasn't, but this year was different. And I've been told by people that have been there a while that it was different, and that we took up a lot of national politically polarizing issues that really divided the chamber and kind of ripped the chamber apart. I felt like coming off a pandemic, we have so many issues here in South Carolina that we need to address. to spend weeks on end on the fetal heartbeat bill when we knew basically, I mean, other states like Georgia had passed basically the same thing. It had been struck down. We saw where boycotts had happened. Obviously, that's something that impacts businesses in those states. But to spend weeks on end ripping the chamber apart on a bill that we knew, well, regardless of where you stand on the issue, we knew what was going to happen. We spent weeks on a shortened legislative session. We have so many pressing needs from roads on down the line, public education. For us to spend so much time on a bill that we knew was going to be struck down in the courts and be all for naught, it just cost money litigating. I thought was, not good tact, but that's what we did. And what we cautioned would happen did occur, where it was struck down in federal court. Obviously, again, with so many pressing needs from infrastructure on down the line, for us to spend as much time as we did on open carry. Law enforcement was opposed to this. I do want to say that we obviously, and to the help of the chamber, we were able to get in where local businesses can put some signage to prevent the open carry and concealed carry if they want on their business. One of the things that I'm proud of, even though I didn't support that legislation for various reasons, is that I was pushing the Judiciary Committee and also on the House floor in the debate for us to do what other states have done, which is to allow local governments the ability to, when there's an event, a parade, a festival on local grounds, to give local government the ability to say, we're not going to have open or concealed carry. And the bill was actually silent on that. And there was the intent to pass it, to not do what North Carolina and other states have done, to say at the St. Patrick's Day Festival, the city of Columbia, for example, can say no concealed or open carry at the last second. And I was involved in that debate on the House floor. They did amend the bill. And that's something that I worked with the Sheriff's Association to get in. So even though I didn't support the open carry, I was happy that we were able to get that in. But there's a lot more work to do, and I look forward to being a part of the process.
Fantastic. You talked about some of the things that did not go through. Are there other things that you feel really strongly about that you're going to work hard in the second year to get through that will make business and life here in South Carolina better? Seth, I'll stay with you, and then Representative Johnson, I'll ask you.
Well, I think, when we talk about business and things that I would like to see done, I have a bill that basically would extend our ethics laws that we have at the state level to local government, to our city councils, our county councils, our school boards. If you're going to lobby the legislature, you have to file as a lobbyist. You have to disclose who you're lobbying for. You have to disclose the purpose for which you're lobbying. I mean, there's a whole list of things that you have to do. But if you're going to go to a school board, a city council, or a county council, those laws just evaporate. And I filed this bill in my first year and was able to go around the chamber. I got 60 co-sponsors, all, one of which was the House Majority Leader, Gary Simmel. We got a hearing on the bill, and that was kind of my welcome to the legislature moment. If you go and you testify before Congress, you have to be sworn in. But I realized to testify at the South Carolina State Legislature, you don't have to be sworn in, and people can just throw mud on the wall and see what sticks and scare everybody in the room. And so that was kind of a aha moment when I showed up for the hearing on that bill, and literally they had to move to a bigger room because there were so many lobbyists and other individuals that it was spreading into the hallway. And so some of the testimony that we heard, I don't believe applies. I've asked the Attorney General's opinion to weigh in on with an opinion so I can disprove some of the scary things that were said. For example, we heard from some in the economic development community who said this would kill economic development. Again, extending ethics laws to local government because there are entities that don't wish to have their, when they're exploring where they want to go, they don't wish to have their company's name out there in the open. But I quickly responded to that by saying the deals that they're talking about, the state is already involved in. So, when you're talking about the fiberglass company that Richland County dealt with that came down Shop Road, the state was involved in that and they weren't disclosed. But it's stuff like that that is thrown out at these hearings that scares everybody, even though it doesn't really apply. And I also think as people studied the state ethics laws, they noticed things, because basically I didn't write a new law. I just said what we do at the state level is going to apply to local government. And I think when they read that, it scared them because maybe they hadn't ever read it before. But I quickly responded, look, I'm not writing a new law. I'm saying what we do at the state will now apply to school boards, city councils, county councils, town councils. But that's something that I think we could use. I would hope that we could get the support of the business community behind, and something I hope to see moving in the new year.
Representative Johnson?
Yes, ma'am. I'm hoping that we can get everybody behind the fact that, we have all this money coming into South Carolina, and I need the business community to get behind helping everybody in the broadband expansion. We heard Representative Rose say that, there's 30 million allocated for, broadband expansion, but that's not nearly enough, and I was, on TV giving an interview about this situation. And I think that broadband expansion would, connect the rest of our communities together. These are, I have about 7,000 people in my district, or 7,000 families that don't have access to broadband internet because there's no provider in their areas, and I'm thinking that, with that, these are all potential customers. These are potential customers. These are potential businesses. These are new student leaders. These are, people that are trying to open up, different things, that are looking for opportunities. These are people who are potentially going to, help to advance our business community, and they don't even have access to even get connected with the rest of the business world. So if we can do something that can make sure that everybody's connected, and we can, help alleviate this digital divide that we have throughout all of our rural communities, I believe we can do some help with the I-95 corridor. I've always called it the Isle of Opportunity. I don't call it the corridor of shame. I call it the Isle of Opportunity, because there's plenty of opportunities right down 95. I mean, just look at this. The transportation goes all the way from top to bottom. You can travel it all the way up, all the way through the entire state. And this is just plenty of opportunities for people. But when you're running through 17 counties of the state and there's no internet in a majority of them, we're dealing with individuals who cannot connect with the rest of the state, let alone the rest of the world, to do business. So this is something that I've really been working on. I believe in the next few months or so, we're going to have our first connection with broadband internet down here in Lower Richland with Tri-County, and I'm super excited about that. I'll be live streaming that connection when we get that connected up. But I think we're moving in the right direction. But I need for us to make this a priority, because there's a lot of things in terms of telehealth that we're lacking because of the lack of broadband. And broadband will literally just, it's at this point, it's not a luxury, it's a requirement. And we need to make sure that everybody has equal access.
Good. Both of you talked about the budget, and we know that you're coming back to this summer to talk about the budget. What are the major issues there? And are there any that's super contentious coming up? Representative Johnson.
I'm trying to step on anybody's toes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I personally believe that earmarks, they have to be made transparent. I think that these things should be announced. I think these things need to be out there in the public eye. I'm probably gonna get some pushback for that, but that's just how I feel. I think that everybody in South Carolina has a right to know where this money is going. These are tax-paying citizens. There should not be any of this stuff where people don't have access to know about where this money is going, how it's being spent, and all that. So that's just my main thing about the budget and the budgeting process is the earmarks. I think if for not doing anything wrong, what do you have to hide? That's why all of my social media pages are public. You can go see what you want to see. You can search how you want to search. I have nothing to hide, so I think that if we don't have anything to hide, these things should be public.
Representative Rose.
Yeah, I agree with Representative Johnson that the earmarks should be made public. And I can tell you, even as a member of the legislature, if they're not being voted on or talked about specifically, it's difficult to know what the other body or other members have put in the budget. So I was surprised when I first started to know that that was the process, but I totally agree with him that that's what we should do. I can tell you that there are some differences when we go back. The Senate has sent us a budget. There's a state employee pay raise of 2% in the Senate's budget. There's an across the board teacher salary increase of $1,000, 65 million in base student costs, where the House initially put 50. I would obviously like to see the 65 be put in. But there's some differences between what the Senate sent and what the House passed. And quite frankly, I like what the Senate actually sent us. They're doing more for state employees. They're putting more in the base student costs. They put $100 million in capital funding for disadvantaged schools, $200 million for the Portal Intermodal Container Facility, things that are really important that they put in their budget. So obviously, when we go back, we're going to have to take up those and see if we can come to a budget. But I like what the Senate sent. And I can tell you one of the things that I'm excited about particularly is that I've got there is some money for a major road project in the 5 Points area. And so I hope to see that funded. 5 Points, obviously there's a lot going on, and we're talking about the future of that, and we're talking about business, but I've been working with the business community in 5 Points. Was surprised when I was in a meeting with Senator Harpootlian discussing 5 Points with the DOT and others, that they actually rank Hardin Street as the #1 most dangerous stretch of blocks in the state in terms of for pedestrians. And that's obviously an age-old thing, going all the way back to Strom Thurmond's daughter being struck and killed by a car decades ago. So we can go on down the line, and it's time to fix it. And I think it's also going to help business down there if it's done right. So that's something that I'm excited about. But again, there are some differences between the House budget that passed and the Senate's. And I hope to take up and put in what the Senate's done.
You mentioned the State Ports Authority facility. Right now it sits at 200 million. Ports Authority asked for 500 million, and there was some discussion about that. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that it will get to 500 million? Representative Rose?
I don't know if it's going to make it to 500. I would like to see it increased. But oftentimes, there's a lot of people in the legislature. And in my freshman orientation, someone even told the group, they said, listen, even if you want to burn the place down, you need help. And so you have to work together to get things done. And sometimes you can't let perfect get in the way of progress. And $200 million is a significant number. And there's nothing, obviously we're in a wait and see. I think the House passed kind of a wait and see budget with the pandemic, but then the numbers coming in, we've got 500 million in extra reserves in what the House passed. So I think even if we don't get the 500 million this year, we can do that in future years. So yeah, I think we need more money, but I am pleased to see a significant investment, but I do think we need to add more to it.
Representative Johnson?
Yeah, I love how Seth just put it. You can't let perfect get in the way of progress. I like it. And I'm still in that, but I will cite you, brother. I can assure you that. I'll give you a citation on that. but I agree with that. I think this is something that, it's a significant win. And I think that, we can definitely progress in the future years with, increments to get to where we need to be. As long as we're going forward and not going backwards, I think we're making good progress, because there are so many people in the General Assembly. It's, you have to work together. And contrary to popular belief, not everybody gets along, so you have to be willing to put your pride aside and go to, not just the other aisle, but, the people in your own aisle, and talk to everybody to get everybody on the same page so that you can come to some sort of agreement for the betterment of South Carolina.
Well, talking about working together, let's talk about the Richland County Delegation. There's been some talk that you don't meet as often as you should. Is that a sign that you're not working well together, or is it just a sign that the machine is well oiled and it's working well? Representative Rose.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Baskin. That is being on the legislative delegation. I mean, the answer to your question is we need to meet more. And I actually sponsored a motion pre-COVID that was passed by the delegation. And I think this is just prior to Jermaine taking office. His predecessor, Mr. Bales Dr. Bales was the chairman at the time. But I sponsored a motion. We met at Midlands Tech that we meet quarterly. And the answer is we need to meet more. And it's embarrassing when you see some of the board positions that we appoint with the comment on down the line that we have good people applying, and it literally goes years and we have not filled the vacancy. And we cannot just show up and take up and do it a fair process to take up all these applications in one meeting. And so the answer to your question is we should meet more. We actually voted to do so. I can tell you our last delegation meeting, and I think Representative Johnson will tell you, we have a new chairperson and vice chair. Chairs Leon Howard, and vice chair is my friend Campbell Garvin, and it ran really well. We got a lot of appointments done. But the answer to your question is we should meet more, and we've actually voted to do so. The wrinkle in that was just prior to COVID shutting everything down. But I do expect us to start adhering to what we passed, which is meeting quarterly.
Representative Johnson, your comment?
Yeah, so I don't have anything to compare it to from last year. All I know is the good stuff that we've been doing now, and it seems like we are heading in the right direction in terms of meeting, especially with Representative Howard and Cambrell, Representative Garvin, at the helm of the ship. We did do a lot of appointments on the last meeting that we had, so I was extremely encouraged by that. I think we're headed in the right direction in terms of meeting, and we're going to get a lot done in this next year. So that's all I see good. I see good coming out of this. Of course, like I said, I don't have the history that Seth has, but going forward, it looks good to me.
Fantastic.
I would say this is it would be nice, and I know this is not likely to happen, but I was a bit surprised that we have weighted voting on the delegation.
Yeah.
And so essentially, Representative Johnson and I don't have, our vote doesn't count as much as others. And I don't know the exact formula for that, but I think it's the size of your district as well. And I think seniority may also factor into the percentage. But, if there's issues with appointments or board members or who's getting elected, it was a bit surprising to find out that it's not a vote for a vote.
I thought the same thing. I thought the same exact thing when I saw that and it has something to do with seniority in there, because I have a significant part of Richland County, but it was a very, very small percentage, and I was wondering how that worked. Especially when let's say you have a board or a commission or something going on in your area, in your community, but yet I can't really oversee who from my community will be the person without getting permission, so to speak, from somebody else who may have a little bit longer tenure than I have. So I was extremely surprised to see that.
So, hey, good morning, guys. Sorry to jump in, but is that standard? Or I don't know of another county that does that.
I don't know, Carl. I don't know if it's standard. I don't think Lexington County does that. But again, I was very surprised when I saw that, and they, sometimes they even factor out. I mean, essentially what it means is 2 people or 3 people can get together and just pick a board, and Jermaine and I are writing down names for not. And so, that was a bit surprising. I don't believe it's standard, and it's certainly not statewide. I mean, it's something that the Richland delegation at some point in time in the past voted to do. And of course, if you want to change it, you got to go to those that have the most votes and ask them to change that. And so that's probably not going to go great. I'll send
Interesting. Interesting. So we still have some work to do. Sounds like it.
Yes.
Also, in the summer session, would you explain to some of our viewers and listeners here what are the limitations for when you're called back in the summer? What can you handle and what can't you handle? Representative Rose, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the sine die resolution has to spell out what we come back for. I mean, that's the answer in a nutshell. We just can't come back and start taking up new bills. And really, the leadership kind of gets together. You know, obviously, they could say we can come back to take up Santee Cooper. Or if there's any issue that's not in the sine die cannot be taken up. That's the answer.
Representative Johnson, you're new. You've already told us that some of what you saw was a surprise. Some of may have been a little frustration there. Of the things that you've worked on, what do you see as the best way to handle getting legislation through in your part?
It definitely deals with the relationship building. I think that'll be the easiest part and the best way to do it. You know, talking to your colleagues, your Republican colleagues, but not just your Republican colleagues, also your senators, you know, your Democrat senators, because, you know, once you get something passed to the House, it doesn't really mean anything until it gets to the Senate. You got to come to the Senate. So you have to work with everybody. You have to build a relationship with everybody. And it's been very difficult to do that in this first session because of, you know, COVID and things being shut down and social distancing and a lot of the, you know, the environments where people go to socialize have been shut down. So I believe that this next year, now that things are opening back up, now that the vaccine is available for anybody and everybody to take it, you know, I think that, you know, we'll get back to some sense of normalcy. And some things can happen. I went in there the very first day and I started talking to all my colleagues and I was saying, listen, somebody give me an idea on what's the best way to get to know all 124 of my colleagues in here. You know, I didn't want to just know the Democratic ones. I wanted to know everybody. And I said, I want to have a sit down with every single member in the House of Representatives, you know, and I think I've gotten to about half of them. So, but I'm still working on the other half. I'm used this year to get with the other half because I don't want people to just, you know me as the representative. I want people to know me as the person so they can know why I'm voting on things the way that I'm voting on, why I stand the way that I stand, and my morals and values. You know, it's a lot of the people they vote based on what their what their political views are. I'm voting based on experiences. And I don't go to the well and speak on anything unless it's from a particular experience that I've had, that I have some knowledge on. So, you know, I'm just really excited just to be able to continue building these relationships with the individuals and find out their stories, because everybody has a story. And I just love to find out their stories and figure out why they're voting the way that they're voting.
We did have a question, and it relates to something that came up earlier in our discussion. A viewer asked, how can we as voters help to avoid the passage of bills that we know are unconstitutional and end up costing the state money and the taxpayers money? Do either of you have an answer for that? Seth, I'll start with you.
I would say by voting. You know, it's serving on judiciary. I can't tell you. I mean, 40% of the legislature's bills come through the committee I serve on. And I can tell you there are so many times where we talk about, is this constitutional? And normally on non-political issues, the mere notion and belief that it's unconstitutional will kill the bill. But there are certain political bills, partisan bills, that people want to push so they can put on a mailer. And we know what's going to happen with it. And we know it's only going to end up likely doing what's happened in other states where businesses boycott, people don't come here for major events, and it's going to hurt business. And all for naught. We're going to spend weeks fighting over it. But the politics get in the way of sensibility. And unfortunately, until the voters say we don't want to do this anymore, because it appears that certain members are being praised for their efforts on these bills that are going and being struck down and only costing money and hurting the business community. And so I guess the answer is that needs to change. And I honestly think that we, even I don't know that we do a really good job on messaging. And I'll give an example. I heard from a Republican colleague of mine who took the well and talked about the open carry law and his reasons for not supporting it, because he thought, the law enforcement didn't support it. He went into this very articulate reasons why he didn't support open carry. And, he said from the well that the NRA basically did a mailer in his district saying that he was coming to take everybody's guns, where he supports the Second Amendment. He was just concerned about having open carry. We know science says that people act more aggressive when a firearm's more openly displayed, things of that nature. But there was a belief, he was attacked by saying, and it's almost like his neighbors were like, hey, what's going on? Like he was going to knock on their door and say, give me all your guns. And then once he explained his position, they were like, oh, we understand that. We think we think your position's great. But we don't oftentimes, and I use that as one example, we don't oftentimes have enough information going out to give the counterpart. And we let politics and other things give the information rather than giving the counterpoint to give people cover as to why they didn't support a bill. For example, if someone voted against the fetal heartbeat bill because it's unconstitutional, it's only going to cost taxpayer money, they could be attacked by saying that they don't support a pro-life position, for example, where the message needs to get out. This is only going to cost taxpayer money. It's unconstitutional, regardless of how you feel about it. And so I think that's something that we need to do more of, is providing the counterpoints. And yeah, that's a long answer, but I think that's my position on that.
Representative Johnson?
Yeah, definitely by voting. Voting is the most effective way. I think when you have such a lopsided General Assembly in terms of power, there's no real incentive to listen to the other side, unless I like you as a person, but there's no real incentive to listen there. So definitely voting is the number one, but also flooding your representatives with emails and phone calls. I can tell you, I've gotten so many calls about and emails about the beach thing that we're going down in Mount Pleasant, Isle of Palms. I've gotten so many calls about the lizard, the lizard law, that ban that came out. You have to think the things that I've gotten phone calls. I want everybody who's watching us to understand that we do go in there and we talk to each other about the emails and the phone calls that we're getting about these bills and things that are coming down. So, flooding them, we do talk about it, we do read them, we do hear you. So please continue to do what you're doing. If something is, unconstitutional, make sure they know that it's unconstitutional. Cite your sources, and let them know, and just continue to flood. But also get out there and vote. Get out there and vote, because I happen to believe that a more purple South Carolina will benefit more people than a more red or blue South Carolina.
We do have another question. A viewer states that in fact, Representative Rose is directed to you as an attorney and a member of the Judiciary Committee. They say that the Safe Harbor bill was really watered down, even though the business community was wholly behind it. He states that the lawyers have stonewalled this legislation all the way. Why can't legislators stand up to trial lawyers when legislation is good and is needed by the business community? Representative Rose, your response?
I can tell you this. I supported the COVID legislation. I voted for it in committee. But I can tell you as a lawyer, I don't know. Obviously, we wanted to send a message and stop frivolous lawsuits that could hurt small businesses. But I don't know how you could prove unless you go, if somebody, I'm a small business owner. I run a small business. I run a law firm. If somebody comes in my law office and leaves and 2 weeks later finds out they got COVID and are trying to say they got it from my stairwell or conference room, I don't know, as a plaintiff in a lawsuit, you have to prosecute the case. How do you prove that you picked up COVID in my law office 2 weeks later? You can't, unless you literally spent 2 weeks by yourself quarantining, came to my law office by yourself, went back and quarantined for another 2 weeks. That is a very difficult thing to do. And so I wanted to send a message to the business community and help stop frivolous lawsuits. But I don't know how you would take a case or how you would prove in my small business that you picked up COVID at my law office. And so I supported the legislation, but I don't know that how any attorney would take a case like that. And the legislation that the House passed actually protects from very frivolous lawsuits. But we also want to make sure that when we take our families out and we go to restaurants or anywhere, that we don't have people, you know, if in my example, if I know my paralegal has COVID and I force her to come in, that's a problem. And the bill that the House passed protects against bad actors that are doing intentionally bad things. But again, outside of that, I don't know that this bill is necessarily needed, but we still did it to send a message for the business community.
Representative Johnson, do you think the bill was watered down?
To be honest, I just think we needed something. You know, we needed something. This is something we haven't dealt with since, 1918 with the Spanish flu. So, I mean, we advanced so much since then. So I think we needed something and anything to get out there at this point. And just to go back to what Representative Rose has said, we can't let perfect get in the way of progress, and we have to have something to get out there. So I believe that it was something good to get out there. I think we're moving forward in the right direction.
You like that quote, Jermaine.
I told you,
I saw your eyes twinkle when I said that. You made a little note. You keep citing me. You're going to use that a lot.
I told you, I'm going to say it at the well. And I'm saying it at the well. Yeah.
There's going to be a tweet about it later on today.
There is. There's going to be a tweet later on today. And I'm not, you know what? I'm not going to cite you.
One final question to both of you. We are hearing here at the chamber and in around the community the fact of joblessness, not only joblessness, but the fact that people can't find people to come to work. Just would like to have your take on that, starting with you, Representative Johnson.
Oh yes, thank you for this one. At first I was on one side, and now I'm on the other side. I was on the side of people need the benefits, people need the support. People need this, that. But now that the vaccine is available to anybody and everybody who wants it, and pretty much anybody and everybody who is going to get it has already gotten it. And where we're at, I believe that. We can't have half the state open and half the state closed. I think we need to start moving forward. So when it comes to joblessness, I had an actual, I work in workforce development. I'm a full-time consultant with my own consulting firm. And I had this conversation with I told him I wouldn't tell anybody who he was or what business it was for, but they were at SC Works. And when they were at SC Works, they had a sign outside, and they were noticing nobody was coming inside of SC Works. Nobody would come inside when the sign was outside saying that they were interviewing. So the directors actually took the sign inside, and then people started to come inside. You want to know why they said that they weren't coming inside? So they went outside. They talked to one of the people that was outside. He said, "No, I'm not going in there, because if I go in there, I'm actually going to get hired, and I'm going to lose my benefits, and I'm actually going to have to go back to work." And when he said that, I was, I literally screamed. I was like, "You can't be serious!" Like, people really do not want to work. They do not want to work. Now, whether it's because they're getting paid more to sit at home, or whatever the reason is, they don't like the job or whatever, but they do not want to work, because of whatever it is their reason is, and I had a problem with that. Now, we could talk about all the other underlying, situations in terms of minimum wage and, all the other different things like that. But the simple fact is people don't want to work right now. They just don't want to do it. So, we have to address some of the root causes of it, like establishing a minimum wage, and giving people different opportunities. But, the thing is, people do not want to work. And that was corroborated by, the actual people saying that if I go in here, I'm going to have to go to work, So, I mean, it's one of the things that I really want to help with. I really want to address. I want to find out how we can start helping these businesses and helping these people so they can start, taking care of their families.
Representative Rhodes?
Yeah, I mean, to the point, it's time to get back to work. The vaccine's available, and we don't need to be incentivizing or have any process in place where it is more financially positive for somebody to stay out of work rather than go back to work. That's not what we should be doing, and that's not what this country was built on. And so I think it's time to get back to work. The vaccine's available.
Paul, do you have any questions?
I do. And speaking of employment, hey, Jermaine, you want to take a minute or two and talk about what you're trying to do in Lower Richland with some youth?
Yes, thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's a good segue to that. Down in my community, down in Lower Richland, we've seen a lot of young people losing their lives, but we're a very, very rural community. And we've been talking about giving people opportunities and programming and things like that. So I've really, really been working hard trying to increase the opportunities for young people in my community. So we are doing a career fair on June 18th, geared toward young people. We'll be having a lot of community partners to come out and offer opportunities to young people. We have, the Columbia Chamber has been a great partner on this to help us out with this. Department of Employment Workforce, bringing out the Be Pro, Be Proud bus to give, some of these simulation opportunities to young people so they can learn about different career opportunities. We have a lot of people. The Columbia Urban League is coming out as well. So we want to help young people to see that they have an opportunity in different career fields so that they don't have to worry about struggling, that they know that there's different things out there to increase, awareness for different career paths. So this is, if you're an industry, particular industry, or you have a business, a small business, or you're just interested in mentoring some of these young people, please, you can get in contact with me. You can get in contact with the chamber, and they can get in contact with me, and we can make sure that we get you set up for this career fair. It'll be held in Eastover at Eastover Park because we want to go down deep in Lower Richland, where it's rural, where there aren't many opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the chamber, in addition, is having a job fair. We're partnering with the South Carolina National Guard and the South Carolina Fairgrounds and other state agencies, and hopefully we can get some private businesses there and to host a job fair on June 24th and August the 12th, which will be at the state fairgrounds. We have a lot of other things that we can talk about for employment. We're getting close to our time. Representative Rhodes, I'd like for you to tell us what your overall opinion is on the process of the first year of this legislative session, and what your hope is for year two.
Well, overall, I think, I was surprised that coming off a pandemic with so many pressing needs, infrastructure, public education. I mean, I can go on down the list of things that we should be spending our time addressing, but instead, again, we took up political national issues. And so I think we wasted a lot of time on things. I mean, again, we spent several weeks on a bill that we knew was going to be struck down. And we only have a couple months out of the year to actually come together and get things done. And you spend one of those months taking up a bill that is going to rip everyone apart and be struck down. So I was rather disappointed. I mean, obviously we've talked about some of the wins, but there's a lot more that we need to be doing with our precious time. And so I'm hopeful we can take up those issues in the new year. I'm hoping that we can increase some of the budget money that we've talked about during this meeting. So we're going to go back in a couple days to discuss the budget and try to come to a resolution. We also need to figure out what we're going to do with Santee Cooper. I mean, obviously right now the House wants a provision in the laws that basically gives an option at some point for a sale, not that it would be stolen, but an option for a sale, where the Senate just wants to pass a bill saying it can never be sold. But I think the House at this point, our side has passed something saying we're not going to sell it, but let's have a provision that we can consider. Both chambers and the governor can take up that if it ever comes down the pike. That's going to conference committee, but that's obviously a big issue. Both the Senate and the House put into that more oversight, gives ORS more teeth when it comes to Santee Cooper. But we have some pressing issues before us, and I hope next year we spend less time on politically divisive national issues and more time addressing the needs and hardships that we have here in South Carolina.
Representative Johnson, your hope for year 2 of the session.
Yeah, so we're South Carolina. We're not like every other state. We're South Carolina, and I hope that we can actually spend time getting things done for South Carolina. If you look at some of the things that are passed or happen in other states, other deep red states, it comes right to South Carolina. Or if something happens in South Carolina, it goes right to the other deep red states. It seems as if there's a nationalized agenda that is, comes from the top and goes all the way down to all the deep red states, and they just continue to try to push this agenda, and they don't sway from it, even if it doesn't fit the mold of South Carolina, like the transgender bill. We've had two, literally, and there's already a process in play for South Carolina, but yet they were still trying to push it through, even if it didn't fit. It's like trying to put a square peg in a circle hole. We just keep trying to do it, even if it does not fit South Carolina. So I hope that we can get to some things to where that actually affect South Carolinians, that actually help South Carolinians, and start to address the real problems that are right here in our home. That's my hope, that we come in there some days and we're in there for 30 minutes and everybody just walking around talking to each other, and then they're like, time to adjourn. I wish some of those days would go away. I'm a very energized young person. I like to work. I like to get out there. I'm always out in my community, always doing something. I think there's so much more work that we can do. I think we can actually get some things done with our precious time. And I challenge everybody who's watching right now to tune in to SCETV to see exactly what we're doing. Check it out. Just look at us one day. Look at us on a Tuesday and see how much work we're getting done, and see what we're doing for you across the state, and see if you're okay with your tax dollars going to us or going through the state, and us managing your tax dollars with the time, and us utilizing the time wisely, and I think that we can get some more things done. So my hope for this next year is that we actually start working on some of the issues that affect South Carolinians, and not trying to push some political agenda that's going on across the United States.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, Henry, I just wanted to thank both of them. One of the things that I didn't hear, but one of the things that were in the budget was $35 million for the USC School of Medicine moving to Bull Street. And I want to thank y'all both for that. That's a huge investment, but more importantly, it is a game changer, I think, for downtown Columbia, in the sense that we have not many, but communities have a med school. We have one, and I would argue it's probably an underutilized asset here in this community, but putting a brand new facility next to a teaching hospital at Prisma is a great investment. So thank you all for that.
Thank you, Carl. And thanks for all you do as well, Carl, in the chamber.
Good. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for breaking your vacations to join us. We really, really appreciate it. You were very enlightening. As a reminder, this issues forum is being recorded, and later on this afternoon, you will be able to go to the chamber's website and listen to it if you care to. The next issues forum will be held on Tuesday. This is Tuesday, June 1st. So it's going to be the first Tuesday in July. Are we having July?
August.
August. We will not have one in July. Will be the first Tuesday in August. And of course, it's 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I want to thank our chamber partners for supporting us, our sponsors, Bank of America and Blue Cross Blue Shield. They've been great supporters of the Issues Forum. Thank you very much. Thanks for the support of the business community. The business community thanks Representative Rose and Representative Johnson for all they do on behalf of the business community. If anyone needs any assistance, please contact Susan or Carl or myself. We'll be glad to help you. Have a great day. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Seth and Jermaine.